Whenever there's war, there's going to be a duality. There's going to be a separation. There's going to be an us versus them type of mentality. And there's going to be suppressed emotional resonance that is driving the conscious actions of the people that are funding and are in control of the warfare that is taking place. And many, many different wars have been fought on our planet. And someday we will move into a timeline where war isn't needed to express that suppressed emotional resonance. But unfortunately, we're not in that timeline yet. But I do think we're moving into it. Now, we're going to be talking about the heart energetic center in relation to what is going on in the Middle East, what has been going on in the Middle East, and what may very well continue to go on in the Middle East. So we have 7 energetic centers on our body. In fact, there's actually more, but we're going to keep it basic for now. So we have the root chakra, the sacral, the solar plexus, the heart, the throat, the third eye, and the crown. So making up 7. And through the principle of as within, so without, anything that is existing inside of us is going to have its corresponding manifestation, in the external reality. We can even say a macrocosmic manifestation as well. So planet Earth, although it represents the root chakra and is very much a manifestation of that, there's going to be other energetic centers as well that are located in different places on our planet. Meaning there's also going to be a corresponding, or should I say, corresponding with our heart chakra, there's going to be an energetic center that is of that same correspondence, or we could say is an externalization of that heart energetic center, or we could even say is a macrocosmic manifestation of it, an energetic center on our planet. So the same way we have this heart energetic center that actually has its own energy field, the earth has what you can think to be a heart as well. And there's an energetic field that comes from this location on the earth. And this kind of goes into the concepts of ley lines and things of that nature. And a ley line is a location on our planet that is very energetically charged up. I think that's the best way that I can explain it right now. So when we're talking about the Middle East, this is always going to have a direct parallel to our heart center. And the reason why that is because the Middle East, when we're talking about what's documented in history, is the very beginning of how civilization formed. It's also where the first creation myth comes from, ancient Mesopotamia. So the same way that the first civilizations formed in the Middle East and the first creation myth comes from the Middle East, well, in fact, the first organ to form in our body was actually the heart. So anything that is taking place within the Middle East is going to be in direct association with our heart. And whenever we're talking about duality, which we're also going to be talking about war, if we're talking about duality and opposing sides and things of that nature, we are also going to be talking about separation. And separation is not something that the heart actually knows. The heart is very intuitive. We could say it has an emotional-based intelligence or an intuitive-based intelligence, and it knows no separation. But what it does know is interconnectedness and unconditional love. So whenever there's this war manifesting, which is just a manifestation of duality consciousness and separation consciousness, there's going to be a disconnect from the heart on a collective level that we're actually seeing manifest. Your average human being is disconnected from their heart energetic center or the heart chakra to where they're not actually really able to feel their emotions authentically or actually love authentically. This is why so many wars over history have been fought. This is why so many people will tell you that they're there for you and that they love you, but maybe they do something to stab you in the back, because even though they have the intention of loving you, they're not actually able to do it if they're not operating out of the heart chakra. So what I'm telling you is very important to understand in relation to what is taking place within the mass collective consciousness right now, and is directly connected to what has been going on between Israel and Palestine, Israel and Iraq, and the different waves of violence that we've been seeing manifest for some time in this region. It is directly connected to our heart. Now, because we're existing in a time where so many people are suppressing their emotions and are basically bottling away trauma that stores itself in the body and in the energetic field in general, without an authentic way to actually process that trauma and to process those emotions so they can actually flow in a more natural way, as well as that trauma being released from the energetic field, what needs to sometimes manifest is war. As bad as that sounds, and I don't want there to be war, I don't think any of us do, but in reality, it's almost like the next best thing when we're talking about a collective purging and a collective, heart chakra balancing, and we can even say activation. And by purging, I mean a release of trauma-based energies from the body. What we're seeing in the Middle East is just a rerun of trauma, and we can even say karma, that has been taking place for thousands of years, and it has not yet been released from a lot of these bloodlines that are in connection with the Middle East. And for the mass collective consciousness to actually move into a higher evolutionary timeline, this conflict that has been in many different ways playing out for thousands of years, it needs to be resolved, because the conflict is not just a physical conflict where you're seeing war and seeing what you're seeing on the news from time to time, but it's a conflict within the mass collective heart energetic center. Once again, the Middle East corresponds to our heart chakra. On a collective level, we can say, for sake of understanding, and on an individual level. And anything that takes place within the Middle East is going to directly affect each and every single individual existing on our planet today. It doesn't matter if you're in the midst of the violence, or maybe you're over here in America, living a completely different lifestyle than somebody that's kind of in the throes of war. Because we're all interconnected, and because we make up a collective consciousness, there's going to be a ripple effect that's going to take place. And this is very evolutionary by nature, and it's actually by a higher design to release all of these different trapped energies that, are essentially kind of binding us to a certain timeline collectively, so we can move into a timeline eventually where we don't need to experience war to release those energies. But because of the state that a lot of humans are in today, this is just not where we're at as a species. There's still a lot of people that need to have conflicts, that need to have fights and things of that nature in their individual lives. And this kind of suppressed energy manifests collectively as what we know as war. But this is all leading us into experiencing the collective catalyst that we need to experience to let go of certain attachments, to let go of thinking that we're separate from each other, to let go of dualistic programming and the idea that we're not interconnected, with everything, to let go of the unhealthy habits and unhealthy coping and limiting beliefs and limiting perceptions and limiting self-identities and things of that nature, things that once again are keeping us in a timeline that's not necessarily our highest evolutionary timeline. So whenever there's war, of course there's going to be the physical manifestation of death. And whenever there's death, this is representing a transition that not only the people that are living in that area are going through, but the entire mass collective at large is also going through. And, when we're talking about timelines and shifting into another timeline, there actually has to be a lot of death energy that manifests to pressurize the things that we're attached to so we can let go of them to move into that timeline. And the way this is manifesting in the Middle East, which once again is directly associated with our heart chakra, the way it's manifesting is going to be in the form of war. And this also represents the internal battle that we've all been going through as a collective, a battle between the authentic self and the false self. Because, a lot of us for a very long time have struggled just to be who we truly are. We're run by all these artificial programs and we're very in avoidance to what we need to process on an emotional level. Therefore, we have all these trapped energies inside of us, which are just keeping us bound to a version of ourselves that isn't actually who we are. So all of this is actually to open up the heart, center or the heart chakra so we can actually live a life that we love. So we can actually love other people and live in a way where we understand that we're humans, having a human experience, meaning there is separation, it is here, and it exists for a reason, but at the same time, we are the absolute experiencing itself in the form of a human, experiencing the illusion of separation to have an evolutionary experience. And even though I perceive myself as Zachary, and you, the viewer, perceive yourself as like an individual unit, in the back of our minds, we know that we are also all things. And because of that, what we do to another is what we are always doing to ourselves, no matter how we justify it. And this becomes an intuitive understanding when we open up our heart center. So what's going on in the Middle East is the opening up of the heart center for each and every single one of us, so we can actually exist in the frequency of love, which is exactly what most people are not existing in the frequency of. Whenever there's a lack of love, there's always going to be a separation programming or a separation consciousness or just a way of thinking that is not necessarily the healthiest, where it is us versus them. The reality is we are all one energy at our core. And when we move into the vibration, or let's say the frequency of love, this is when we truly honor that interconnectedness. And this is when war won't need to exist. But that's not the timeline that we are existing in just yet. We're in a major transitional phase. And a part of this transition is what we've been seeing in the Middle East.